All right, so what's in your kitchen? What are you going to make for dinner tonight? This is the question that Brian Butler is asking all the time when it comes to your retirement plan. My name is Jeff Miles. This is The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth with Brian Butler. He is the CEO and Senior Advisor at Wealth Standard Financial, and you can find more information on the website at wealthstandardfinancial.com. Brian, how are things going, man? I know that our last episode, as we were talking about, just some of the things in the kitchen and different ways to prepare dishes. There's a lot to consider when it comes to the retirement plan, the same way that there is in the kitchen.
Absolutely. Some of the things that have been going on the news, it seems like it's just nonstop information. And that's what retirement is going to be. You think it's busy now, wait till you're not working and fill in those 8 hours. You could fill it with nonstop television and information. But how do you tailor that particular information to what you're trying to accomplish? And how can we make that a special dish just for you and your retirement? And that's, some of the things that we've been trying to do, especially as we consume tons of information. We're not trying to, need a diet. We're going a low information diet right now. So,
well, what's funny though is to kind of relate this to how things are, especially with retirement. And because listen, if you're retired now, or if you're in that world where retirement is coming up, and I'm sure you've got a lot on your mind with everything that's going on in the world. I start thinking about like my grandparents, for example. It was pretty simple. You got your Social Security, you got your pension, you might have a little bit of a savings account over here, and that was basically your retirement plan right there, all in a nutshell. It was pretty generic and it was pretty basic, and most people had that kind of way about it. Now things are different. Now it is more personal. Now it is more tailored to your specific situation. And that's why you have to have someone looking at, what you have going on and making sure that it's all, set up, tailored just for you, right?
Well, absolutely. Because right now, Social Security still exists.
Yes.
Will it always? Or will it change? Yeah, we absolutely don't know. One thing I know for sure is the pension is going the way of the dinosaur.
Correct.
They're slowly disappearing over time. And, I rarely see younger people in their 20s, 30s, and even their 40s. I ask, do you have a pension? And they just look at me like I'm crazy.
They don't even know what that is.
And even people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, some have pensions, and some that are nearing retirement or just retired, those pensions are significantly less, or they don't exist at all. And so everything's been put back on you from the employer standpoint. They had all the risk with the pension, so now they're putting it on you with things like your 401k, your IRAs, your Roth accounts. So how do you blend all of those accounts, the right ingredients for your retirement, even though the landscape has changed and will continue to change? How do you make adjustments as you go forward? That's what my job is as a wealth advisor, is to take all of those ingredients in areas within your retirement and get the right mix so we can come up with something together.
Okay. So I know you've got a couple of things on the menu that we're going to dive into, and I want to kind of give a general idea of what we'll be getting into here in a second. So you're going to talk about, personalized plans based off of like your dietary restrictions. And then there's a regional cuisine that you mentioned here.
Yeah.
And this one's interesting because, so I've lived in many different parts of the country, and many different parts of the country, how the majority of people are able to set themselves up for retirement could be drastically different from one place to another. For example, if you live up in the Northeast and I worked in New York for about 5 years, and listen, there's still a lot of pensions in those areas. If you live in the DC area and you work, and you're in the government sector, you still got the pension plans there. But as you start to move to, other, like Texas, for example, is, there's not a whole lot of like union type of pension plans that are put together for people. And so that's a regional cuisine that you've got going on in Texas that's different from, some of the other parts of the country. And as you look at that, I think that you do have to kind of see as you have here on the third item here is the chef special. how to make yours as appealing and as exciting as someone who theirs is kind of almost like, I was talking about my grandparents before. It's almost kind of like done for you, right?
Absolutely. So when you're figuring out the regions, it encompasses several things. So it can encompass your geographic location. It could encompass where those funds are. Are they in a 401k or 403b, IRA, a Roth IRA, a Roth 401k, a SEP? So you have all these different regions for assets, all of these different rules from a tax standpoint that you have to abide by. Then if you don't, there's a penalty that could happen from the government. So figuring out where the assets are and the rules that apply to those particular regions of your retirement, because that's what they are. They're different regions within your retirement, getting assets from different areas. Some people have, when you are in Europe, you might have access to some of the best grapes on earth. But then if you need some corn, you might need to go to the Midwest and Iowa and Nebraska, and you have some of the best corn on earth. How do you get those different regions? And those regions, there's not a lot of wine being made in Iowa and Nebraska. Right. There's tons of wine being made in Europe. And so figuring out what restrictions your region has, it applies directly to your retirement and where and what we can do with those particular assets.
So what about the dietary restrictions? How does that apply to retirement plans in terms of, I don't know, maybe my restrictions are that, on the health side of things, I can't eat a whole lot of salt. For example, how does that kind of play into the retirement world?
So one of the dietary restrictions are risk level. Yeah. How much risk are you willing to tolerate during your retirement?
How much salt are you willing to put on your food? If you're one of those people that you just take the top off and start pouring it in, and that's a different person right there.
Absolutely. And you might have been able to take that salt for the first 20 years of your career while you were working, but now you're becoming more salt sensitive or more risk averse the closer you get to retirement. So how do we adjust the recipe for your taste? A lot of times people, when they get a little bit older, they become more sensitive to things like sugar and flour. So how do we make it a healthier dish for you? So do we rotate? So we might add more bonds to your portfolio than stocks, and vice versa, depending on your age, as we're building this dish for you. So you start to really pay attention to what people want in their taste, because you're asking the right questions when it comes to retirement. Right. What are you comfortable with? What are you worried about? What are some of the things that you like and don't like? So from an investment standpoint, you're putting that together, and you used to like energy, but now you're like, I need to rotate a little bit away from that because I've gotten burned in the past. So how do we diversify or give you some things that you're comfortable with? And it's the same thing when you go to a restaurant and you see something on the menu and you like everything about it except, I hate mushrooms.
Right.
It's like, I wonder, can they make the adjustment and not put those mushrooms in there? I love mushrooms. My wife hates them. Okay. And so whenever we go to restaurants, she always asks the question like they won't do it. She looks at the menu and says, I wonder, will they not put mushrooms in this? I said, yeah, just ask them. Yeah. They say, of course we can do that. So They can still make her a great dish just without the things she doesn't like. And we do that from an investment standpoint. So if you're a type of person that hates stocks, they exist. We can still build a portfolio that can get you some of the things that you're looking for in a way that you're comfortable with. Right. So just adjusting the dish a little bit to fit that particular person. That's how you get those specialty dishes for clients in their retirement. Because at the end of the day, what's right and wrong is a matter of perception for that particular client. And is that dish good? That dish might be great to you, and I might hate it. Yeah, but the dish is the same.
You're absolutely right. It's interesting because when it comes to those personalized plans, again, one of the coolest things about going into a restaurant is that you have options, right? The two people, if you're going out with your significant other that are sitting at the table, you don't have to eat the same exact meal.
Right.
And that's kind of the cool thing about going into the restaurant, because when you go to a restaurant, chances are you're going for a specialty type dish or a
Absolutely.
personalized kind of dish. And so I really like the analogy that you're putting there. I do want to be very clear. You're not saying that as you get older that you just have to go gluten-free with your retirement plan.
Absolutely not. Hey, I know people that go all out with their retirement plans, take tons of risks, and they go on tons of adventures with food. So it all depends on what you want. And so that's the beautiful part about engaging with a financial advisor is they're going to do what you want and still get you where you want to be.
Right.
So there's some adjustments and some things that you might have to give and take on. But if we can design something and get the right mix for you from all over the broad spectrum of investment options, account types like 401ks, 403bs, things like that, and then tax laws taken into account, how do we mix all of that to get you the perfect dish?
You know, you being the chef that you are, the man with the plan when it comes to putting ingredients together, the same way that in many dishes, there are certain spices that may not necessarily go together very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to imagine that in a retirement portfolio, that there are certain assets that may not necessarily go as well together based off of tax implications, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You got the RMDs that start to kick in, and how does that affect other things in your asset allocations?
Absolutely. So when you're looking at retirement is just an exercise in income.
Yeah.
So how do you replace and get you an income stream that lasts for life? So you might not be in things that are highly illiquid. They might be great investmts for a particular season of your life.
Sure.
But they might be horrible for the goals that you're trying to accomplish. So if 80% of your money is in an illiquid investment and you need 80% of your money to produce income, those are just two things that just don't go together.
Yeah.
And so how do you blend a portfolio? A lot of times it takes time. So prepping well ahead of your retirement is key. And sometimes you don't have a lot of time, but if you do, how can we position those particular areas of your accounts, make sure that they're taken care of and positioned to give you the income that you want in retirement, and at the same time managing taxes. So it's a lot of that. How do you prepare ahead of time to get you the assets and income that you need while also giving you the growth that you want?
So, Brian, I grew up in the Waco area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, out in the country. I love steak. Like, if I could have steak for every meal, I would be a very happy man. But what's very interesting about steak, and I bring the chicken could be the same way, but I'm going to focus on the steak right now.
Yeah, we're in Texas, so I can roll with that.
When it comes to something like I say, you can get a beautiful cut of meat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is that cut of meat may be, a very expensive, Kobe beef or Wagyu, cut. Once I get that home, I can use that in a myriad of different ways, right? And I kind of liken this to $1 million, let's say. If I've got $1 million, the $1 million is my stake, let's say. That $1 million doesn't work the same for every single scenario, the same way that I can cook this steak in different types of ways, right? So you might want to, pan sear it or whatever. You may decide you want to cut it up and make medallions out of it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that just because you got the steak that it's going to be exactly what you think it's going to be if you don't know exactly what you're going to be doing with it.
Absolutely. So if you don't know what to do with an expensive cut of meat or steak, and you don't know what to do with it, and you just experiment, things can go really well, or they can go really bad. And it's just like a good cut of meat has a temperature. Some people like their steaks well done. I don't know why.
I don't know why. But you do you.
Hey, but some people will make a steak well done, put ketchup on it, and keep going. Other people like it super rare and it's still mooing in the pan and everything in between.
Right.
Now, personally, okay, we have our personal preferences and think, we have perceptions on, oh, that's crazy or that's crazy. But figuring out what that particular person loves and wants and delivering them the right temperature. And that's where it comes in with investing. It's the same thing. How do you get the right temperature to get that client what they want? And is it possible? So is it possible to cook a steak perfectly? It's perception. We don't know what perfect is. Yeah. What's perfect? Nobody knows. And so it's the same thing with your retirement. I have some clients that take tons of risk in their portfolio and they're in their 70s, but they just understand and that's what they want. And then I have some other clients that are in their 30s and 40s that are very risk averse and don't want to take too much risk in the market. Sure. Now, if I just looked at them and said, oh, based on your age, you get fill in the blank. Yeah. I would give them the exact wrong dish. It would be like me giving them a Kobe steak and putting it in a blender and serving it to them. It's still a Kobe steak.
Yeah.
I seasoned it the same way, but it's not going to be very appetizing to them.
It's nowhere near the same.
And so that's the way we really look at it, because a lot of times I hear other advisors and I hear other people talking to their clients, and I see them giving them instructions just based on the perception of, okay, you're in your 60s and 70s taking income. We should take drastic risk off the table. And the clients might be like, why? Why would I do that? And they want to understand that there's opportunity out there and they want to take advantage of it. And understanding the risk and reward that's there is the part of the enjoyment that they have.
Right. When it comes to these different ways of tailoring a solution for someone's retirement plan, so much of it has to do with personality, right? Like what kind of personality are you? What type of restaurant would you go to? Right. Yeah. That's kind of the way that you're looking at it when you've got somebody coming in and they're talking to you about, you're almost, again, like the chef that's in the restaurant. And, people come in and they kind of understand that there's a menu that you have over here. But you kind of want to know what type of stuff do you like? And I can kind of whip it up and make it specific for you. But you need the information, right? You need to know what their personality style is.
Absolutely. So this reminds me of, we had a happy hour for some of our clients and prospective clients a few weeks ago. And we were in there looking at the menus. They had a lot of cool cocktails. So, whiskeys, vodkas, mocktails. So no alcohol. So we had everybody and everything there. So we were really looking. I was like, what do I want? But then I saw something and it said bartender special. And I said, okay, tell me more about the bartender special. He goes, we ask you a few questions and then we make you a drink based on what you like and what could potentially be out there. I said, okay, let me try it. It's a risk. I said, let me try it. And he gave me one of the best drinks I ever had. It was full of things that I would have never put together. It was coconut milk and some rum with vodka with a shot of whiskey and pineapple. I drank it and I said, oh, that's dangerous, but in a good way. Dangerous in a good way. I said, that was amazing. Super smooth. And I would have never known to put those ingredients together in that particular mix. And a lot of times people know, okay, I know what pineapple juice is. I know what rum is, but what's the right mix to get that great cocktail? And it's the same thing sometimes with investments. You know all the pieces. How do you put it all together? How do we get you the right cookbook for your retirement, and figuring out those pieces and how I can get you that chef special. So the chef's retirement special, blending alternative investments, stocks, bonds, ETFs, liquid investments, real estate, hard assets. How do you get all of those together? Whereas you may know what they are from a general standpoint. How do you put them all together? Some people know how to put them together. It's very rare, but some people need partnership. And how can we put those together and get you that surprise that you didn't even know was possible? And that's what the chef's retirement special is.
so my wife, when we first started dating, we've been together for 20 years, right? When we first started dating, we'd go have a steak somewhere. And Brian, I'm not kidding you. She'd get a filet and get it like medium well.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I'm like, we're wasting money on this cut of meat right now. And it was because that's what she knew. She had always had it that way. That's what she knew. That's how she grew up eating it.
Yeah.
Eventually, I, kind of like, just give it a shot.
Right.
Try going medium.
Yeah.
And I got to imagine that a lot of people may need to have a little bit of that, almost kind of like a nudging, so to speak, to maybe try something a little bit different just to see what that outcome could be. I mean, I know it's that way in the kitchen. I know it's that way at the table. How is it when it comes to people's retirements and stuff like that? Because listen, a lot of people, they probably come into your office and they feel like they know what they're supposed to do. They know what their I guess thresholds are with certain things. Are there times when you're like, yeah, but you could probably benefit from maybe trying this over here?
No, that comes into play a lot of times when people are gearing up for retirement. They may have had a concentrated stock position. We see that all the time. So, companies give stock and they held on to them for 20 and 30 years. And then next thing you know, they have $3-4 million in that company stock. Yeah. Now, do they keep that company stock for the next 20, 30 years? That's the $1 million question I have to ask them. Said, okay, we may need to nudge you because we know that brought you to the dance. How do we get you diversified now? Because who knows what's going to happen 20 years from now? Sure. Think of it. When you and I were in high school, we didn't have the internet.
No.
What internet? What are you talking about? The
computer class we actually had I was a senior in high school, and it was an elective.
Right. So, and you go back and look at things on television. I remember this Today episode with Brian Gumbel and Katie Couric, and they were just looking at the @ symbol. They were like, what is that?
Yeah.
Why do I need an email address?
Right.
What is that going to do? That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, it just would seem crazy to say those things. And it's the same thing when it comes to your investment. How do you look at what you have now, and how can we push you to what you really want? So sometimes it's taking the emotion out of it. It's like, I'm sure with your wife, I've been eating this the same way for this long and it never gave me problems. Well, just try it and see if you like it. If you don't, hey, we can always go back. Yeah. And that's where you do baby steps when it comes to changing people's perceptions. But if you show them the overall opportunity and they can see what it looks like, what the final product looks like, they're like, you know what? I feel a little bit more comfortable. I can be a little bit more adventurous. And then it changes over time. And then you change with them from a retirement standpoint.
I love it, man. This is such great stuff. And if you want to reach out to Brian and talk more about your retirement plan, or if you just want to talk about how to cook a good steak, talk to Brian and everybody over at Wealth Standard Financial. Brian, before we wrap up this episode, I just have to know one thing.
Absolutely.
How do you take your steak?
I am a medium person.
Okay. Yeah.
I definitely am a medium person. I love the ribeyes. Ribeyes are, they're a problem.
The flavor is, man. That's where the flavor is. Yeah, absolutely.
They are a problem, but in a good way.
Brian, man, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for taking the time today. I encourage people to reach out to you. WealthStandardFinancial.com is the website. Again, WealthStandardFinancial.com. This is The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth with Brian Butler, of course, the CEO and senior advisor there at Wealth Standard Financial. And I can't wait to talk more the next time around. I know that every time we do one of these podcasts, I go home hungry.
I'm hungry right now, so I might have a steak.
There you go. All right, very good. Brian, I'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, have a good one.
The opinions voiced in The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth with Brian Butler, are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing. Guests on The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth are not affiliated with CWM LLC. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.